Yo, what's going on, Headliner Nation? Welcome back to the Fantasy Headliners. Kyle back from Headliner HQ. We've already dropped one video talking about the trade of A.J. Brown to the Philadelphia Eagles, but he is not the only wide receiver that was on the move during the first round of the NFL draft, because Marquise Brown was also traded last night, going from the Baltimore Ravens to the Arizona Cardinals. Another name that we were not anticipating being moved during the first round of the NFL draft. I mean, the amount of wide receivers that have been traded this offseason and changed homes is just absolutely crazy. And it continued last night. I mean, we talked about Debo a lot, right? I mean, leading up to the draft, it was, when's Debo going to be traded? Who's he going to be going for? All these different things. And then here, all of a sudden, Marquise Brown shows up out of nowhere, and it's like, oh, we're going to get rid of Marquise Brown. A.J. Brown gets traded out of nowhere. So big trades last night, but let's break it down and talk about what the trade looked like. And for the Arizona Cardinals, they got Marquise Brown and the 100th overall pick. And for the Baltimore Ravens, they ended up getting the 23rd overall pick. Oh, man. Listen, okay? Marquise Brown heading out to Arizona for me doesn't help Marquise Brown at all. But I think it is good for the Arizona Cardinals playmakers, Kyler Murray. So Marquise Brown to me has never been a wide receiver one, ever. Okay. He's a guy that can stretch the field. He can make some plays. And I mean, he's coming off a really good season. Last year, over 1,000 yards. Was the main weapon, even with Mark Andrews having a fantastic season, still seemed to be the main target for Lamar Jackson. The connection there was just great. And by the way, Lamar Jackson tweeted, didn't love it. But that's neither here nor there. So taking a look at Marquise Brown, moving away from that, going back to former college quarterback Kyler Murray, there is a little bit of a connection there. But there are way more weapons in Arizona for him to compete with than there was in Baltimore. Heading out to Arizona now, he is truly going to be a wide receiver to a field stretcher, a guy that is going to have some big games here and there. Mentioned it on the stream last night, kind of a Deshaun Jackson type field stretcher where he's going to make some big plays and he's going to have some big games, but they're going to be inconsistent and they're probably going to end up being a little few and far between. Marquise Brown for me is a guy, when I take a look at it, it's like maybe he's a wide receiver 3 this year. Maybe he puts together some really big weeks. I mean, Marquise Brown is like a best ball pick. Yeah, absolutely. We can go for that. But he does help out the other guys, because now on the opposite side of Marquise Brown, you've got DeAndre Hopkins. And DeAndre Hopkins, who a lot of times would see safeties come down over the top to help, may not end up seeing that as much anymore, because those safeties may be coming down to kind of help with Marquise Brown to make sure that if he does beat the cornerback, that there is somebody back there to help them out. We know Marquise Brown has the speed. We know he can beat people down the field. So a safety is going to have to keep an eye on him. So you might not be able to then give a safety to whoever the cornerback is on DeAndre Hopkins. And DeAndre Hopkins can win all over the field. All right, so DeAndre Hopkins, for me, I already talked about it in my consensus rankings video last week, where I was kind of breaking down, the different rankings of players that I just didn't really seem to understand. And DeAndre Hopkins at wide receiver 12 was one of those. This is a good move for DeAndre Hopkins. I like this move for DeAndre Hopkins. Takes pressure off of him. But you've also brought Zach Ertz back as well. Zach Ertz is going to have a whole lot of fun over the middle of the field this year. I mean, this is a guy that for me is solidified in the top 10 of tight ends and could end up moving higher as we kind of talk about this and start ranking guys this offseason. These are guys that are going to have room to run. And not only that, now that you have got that true field stretcher, a guy that's going to take eyes down the field, it's going to help James Conner as well, who is re-signed with Arizona, right? You're not going to be able to stack boxes against James Conner. You're going to have Zach Ertz over the middle of the field. You're going to have DeAndre Hopkins on the other side, who is going to be all over the place. You're going to have Marquise Brown going straight down the field. So to start stacking boxes against James Conner, that's just not going to be possible. So this Marquise Brown, what feels like might be like an insignificant move, I think in the big picture of 2022 is a huge move for everybody around him, because I think it's going to lead to the ability to make everybody around him better. So love this deal for Arizona. Love them adding him. And this really, really, really helps out the guys that are going to be around him. Now we just got to keep our fingers crossed that James Conner and DeAndre Hopkins can stay healthy for an entire season. But on the other end of it, for the Ravens, they end up getting the 23rd overall pick. They then traded it. They traded it to move back a couple of spots and then used it on center Tyler Linderbaum, which I absolutely love. Absolutely love that pick. But in terms of fantasy football outcomes, number one, again, already mentioned it, Lamar Jackson, didn't love it. Lamar Jackson did not seem to be happy about his wide receiver one being traded. So now this is going to bring up Rashod Bateman. It is Rashod Bateman's season. And I've always liked Rashod Bateman, but I didn't anticipate him kind of taking over the wide receiver role, or wide receiver one role, from Marquise Brown, because of that connection that Brown and Lamar Jackson had. So now that Lamar Jackson is out of town, or not Lamar Jackson, excuse me, now that Marquise Brown is out of town, Lamar Jackson is going to have to move to Rashod Bateman. Now, I think Mark Andrews is now going to be solidified as the number one target in this offense. This is a guy that before the season started, or before the offseason, really got underway, I kind of warned people about, because I was like, hey, be very careful where you draft him overall this year, because some of those targets that we saw last year might filter out to Rashod Bateman a little bit as he grows. We've got obviously J.K. Dobbins coming back. We got Gus Edwards that's going to be back. All of this, right, is going to lead to the opportunity for Mark Andrews to see a reduction in targets. But now that Marquise Brown is gone, all of those targets that were going to Marquise Brown are going to have to filter over to Rashod Bateman. But we know now that safety net that we may have lost with Mark Andrews comes back to him. So this is good for Mark Andrews. Mark Andrews is going to be solidified as probably a top 3 tight end heading into the season. The volume is going to be there. We know he's going to be the number one target for Lamar Jackson. It's going to be up to Rashod Bateman to step up now, though, to really help draw some of that attention away that Mark Andrews is going to see on a consistent basis. So Rashod Bateman taking a big step in year 2 is going to be big. Mark Andrews, for me, like I just mentioned, top 3 tight end. For Rashod Bateman, I'm hesitant to go any higher than probably a low end wide receiver 2 right now. I mean, we saw some production from Marquise Brown that, if it would have been more consistent for over an entire season, we probably see him get a little bit closer to wide receiver 1 status and be right in that low end wide receiver 1 area. So Rashod Bateman for me is going to kind of be on that low end of the wide receiver 2 status. And then depending on what else they do, I mean, who knows what Baltimore does? Maybe they make another move to bring in another wide receiver and put him on the other side. That's going to be a question that we'll have to wait. So I'm hesitant to go too crazy on Rashod Bateman, because things obviously could change. But we know as of right now that the target share is going to be there for him to at least be a guy that's going to see the volume. Now, if the volume turns into anything, that's where he starts to creep up, but he's going to have enough volume to at least be on that low end kind of wide receiver 2 area. Marquise Brown, I don't think anybody anticipated seeing this. So definitely some changes in Baltimore coming up. We'll see how things shake out the rest of the offseason. We'll see how things shake up here with the rest of the draft. For the rest of the draft, rounds 2 and 3 coming tonight. We'll see what Baltimore tries to do. Again, do they bring in another guy to be around from Rashod Bateman? Arizona on offense at this point is probably done. I think we can start locking some of these guys into predictions, knowing where they're going to be at. Love the trade for Arizona, though. May not seem like a big deal for Marquise Brown, and it probably isn't. But for everybody else around him, could really end up helping out. So, ladies and gentlemen, do me a favor. Hit the like button down below if you appreciate the content. Make sure you subscribe if you're new here, and stick around all off season for what we're going to be dropping. Lots of content coming in the next couple of weeks now that the draft is done. And then leave me a comment down below. If you're an Arizona or a Baltimore fan, what do you think of the trade? If you're neither of those fans, who wins the most here? Who do you think is the biggest winner here? Is it someone from Arizona? Is it Bateman? Is it Andrews in Baltimore? Let me know down in the comments below. Appreciate appreciate everybody tuning into this video, but I'm going to get out of here because Jake and I are going to go plan some more stuff. Lots of recordings to do this weekend. Hopefully everybody's staying safe and healthy out there, and I will catch you on the next episode of the Fantasy Headliners.